Now, with that, I'd like to now introduce our next speaker. We have Krishen Mehta, who is our senior partner in the IAS field in Tokyo. Krishen leads our Asian Pacific practice. He's been there for many, many years, and he has a very interesting topic. It's looking at an impossible dream, and I promise I'm not going to start singing, and I don't know if Krishen will. But Krishen is looking for us to see how can we take responsibility for change and be an agent to move that forward. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Krishen.
Thank you, Jeff. Ladies and gentlemen, in this autumn of many angers, in which even the most articulate among us have been rendered speechless, it is all the more important that we continue to pursue our hopes, our dreams, our aspirations. For it is the pursuit of those dreams that brings out the best that we have to offer. That is why I chose the subject today of the impossible dream. Let me start with the very humble example of the bumblebee. Did you know that a bumblebee does impossible things? You may wonder, how's that? Well, science has shown that a bumblebee cannot fly. But you'll say, well, we see bumblebees flying all the time. You see, bumblebees do not have enough wingspan to fly. Science has shown that. Aerodynamically, there is just not enough wing to lift up the bee's body. But the bee does not know that. And it goes on flying anyway. The bee does not know that. And it goes on flying anyway. To dream is to imagine what can be. Albert Einstein used to say that imagination is a preview of life's coming attractions. He believed that imagination was even more important than knowledge, because while knowledge is limited, imagination is limitless, giving birth to what is not yet, but can be. While knowledge is limited, imagination is limitless, giving birth to what is not yet, but can be. When I proposed the theme of this topic about 5-6 months ago to my colleagues, to Michael Budnick, Jeff Kaufman, Denis, and others, I was going through some questioning myself as to what is it that can make us think beyond our present boundaries. What is it that we all share? What is the bond that unites us? What is it that can give more depth and purpose to our day-to-day lives? I concluded that we all have dreams, but that we are also somewhat afraid. I asked myself, why is that so? Why is it that we are afraid to know where our dreams may take us? Are we afraid that they may take us to some place that is not realistic or practical or acceptable? I therefore decided to undertake this exploration with you, to understand this state of being at the edge of knowing in our hearts what our dreams are, and yet being afraid to take them. Our goal today, ladies and gentlemen, is to bridge the path between our dream and our reality, to come closer in touch with our dreams, to believe that we deserve them, to look at some practical ways of achieving those dreams, and I'll give a number of examples, and to commit to follow them. As you can see, this is not an easy task. We are all very skeptical by nature. The Pricewaterhouse people in this audience, PricewaterhouseCoopers people in this audience, lawyers and accountants are very skeptical. And our clients, they don't believe us anyway. They're more skeptical than most. But to help with this adventure, I ask for your trust and your openness. I will give a number of examples and offer a number of practical suggestions. And for the short time that we have this morning, let us set our doubts and our cynicism aside and see where it takes us. Are we ready? All right. Since we're in a business group, let me start by giving a few examples in the business world of certain impossible dreams which have come to reality. How many of you have heard of computing, tabulating, recording company? Please raise your hands if you have. I see 1, 2, 3, 4. What company is that, Jody? IBM. This company, computing, tabulating, recording company, continued in existence for many years until 1924, when Tom Watson Sr. decided to take this company to a whole new dimension, to make it a global company. At that time, computing, tabulating, recording company made only time clocks and weighing machines that were used by butcher shops and grocery stores. He decided to change the name to International Business Machines. Imagine the chutzpah of that. There was nothing international about it. Nothing, if you consider business, international business, there was nothing there. And machines, making time clocks and weighing machines was hardly machines in the international sense. But he decided that he was going to make that company a global company with a whole new range of products and services. This same company in 1960 invested $5 billion in the IBM 360 to take the company to a whole new dimension of computing and to take it far ahead of its competitors. This company today, in spite of many ups and downs, has rebounded to be a world-class computing, consulting, mainframe, and systems integration firm. Joe, did you like that plug? I'll send you a bill, though. Sony, another one of our clients, set as its motto to be a pioneer, not to follow others, but to do the impossible. Their plan was to lead the market with new products rather than ask the market what it wanted to have. They had simply the vision and the R&D, almost no manufacturing facilities, everything was outsourced, but they wanted to just focus on what the market wanted and did R&D to make that happen. And they were the ones, as you know, to come up with the first transistor radio, the first VCR, the Walkman, and the state-of-the-art Palm Pilots and laptops that we see today. Now, while they were pursuing their vision, they needed to survive. They needed cash flow. So in Japan, which was their biggest market at the time, they sold not these sophisticated gadgets, but they sold heating pads and soybean paste to have the cash flow needed to pursue their vision. Let us look at Citicorp. Here's $5 for anybody who can tell me when Citicorp was founded. Take a guess. Anybody? I'll give you a hint, but I'll take $5 back. It was the same year that Napoleon marched to Moscow. Now can you tell me when it was founded? 1812. Very close. This company was founded in 1812, and for almost 150 years, it floundered as a regional bank until the mid-1950s, when Walt Wriston undertook the vision of performing every useful financial service anywhere in the world, to be innovative, to expand size and geography, and to be the most far-reaching financial institution in the world. It was able to achieve that goal. Here in Orlando, we're in the world of Disney, a company whose motto is to bring happiness to millions and to celebrate and nurture creativity, dreams, and imagination. Walt Disney captured the enduring purpose of his company when he said that Disneyland will never be completed as long as there is imagination left in the world. He even changed the script to correspond to this new vision. Employees are cast members. An audience, a crowd is an audience. A work shift, for example, a work shift is a performance. A job description is a script. I mean, they really changed how they viewed themselves in accordance with their vision to bring happiness to people and to let people's imagination go different places in the sense that when they were at Disneyland, they would have that sense of excitement and joy. Now, you may say that it's easy for companies, but it is not so easy for individuals to have an impossible dream. Dr. Janet Lapp talked yesterday about Bill Irwin. I will also speak a little bit about him. Bill Irwin was a man who, at age 28, became almost blind due to excessive drinking. In his early 50s, he decided, as a recovering alcoholic, to take on a big adventure, to hike the entire 2,167 miles of the Appalachian Trail with his seeing eye dog as his sole companion. He faced daunting hazards, cliffs, storms, biting insects, and his own fears. Before starting, he committed himself to the journey. He says, I don't care how many times I fall, I can always crawl back to Maine. 8 months later, he became the first blind man to walk the entire length of the trail. How did he do it? He never saw the trail. He just took it. He did not stick to the plan that others conceived for the life of a blind man. He sought his own course, the one that his own spirit needed to follow. Ladies and gentlemen, embedded in the story of Bill Irwin is the dual message of human imperfection as a recovering alcoholic and human transcendence. I relate this story because in many ways it is our story too. We all have our faults. Some of us may admit them less than others. And we all have the ability to overcome those shortcomings to pursue our dreams. Let me tell you another story, that of Lorenzo's Oil, which was made into a movie a few years ago. It is the story of Augusto Odoni, an Italian man who worked at the World Bank, his wife Michaela, and their struggle to find a cure for their 5-year-old son, Lorenzo, who was suffering from ALD, adrenoleukodystrophy. This is an illness that affects only boys between the ages of 5 and 10, that leaves them blind or mute. And they suffer dementia before they go into a coma and die. There are no exceptions, there are no cures. To overcome the problem that they were facing, the Odonis embarked on a scientific quest to understand ALD, the genetics, the biochemistry, the neurology of the disease. They spent months at the National Institute of Health Library. They talked to scientists and doctors. They even planned the first international symposium on ALD and invited medical researchers from around the world to help them, all in an effort to find a cure for their son. Eventually, they themselves made a scientific breakthrough. They discovered that an extract from rapeseed oil, now known as Lorenzo's Oil, would stop the progression of the disease that was killing their son. Lorenzo's Oil is a movie about how persons who are trapped in a hopeless situation can find hope. They found hope not only for their own child, but for many children around the world. It is a love story. It is a story about the impossible dream. From these real stories, whether they be in personal life or in the business world, a few things are clear: that dreams are possible. They require leaps of faith. They require imagination. They're energizing. They give clarity and purpose to our lives, and they make us look beyond our present condition. A person whose writings has always inspired me and who coincidentally was also the graduation speaker when I completed my MBA in America as a newly arrived immigrant was Norman Cousins. In that commencement speech, which I listened to very closely, there are a number of things that he said which have stayed with me ever since. But there are two that relate to the subject of the impossible dream. One, man's ingenuity lies in doing that which has never been done before. And two, we don't know enough to be pessimistic. Reflect, ladies and gentlemen, on the story of Lorenzo's Oil, the story of Bill Irwin, the story of Tom Watson at IBM, of Akio Morita of Sony, of Walt Disney or Citicorp, and you'll probably agree with me that man's ingenuity lies in doing that which has never been done before, and we don't know enough to be pessimistic. What are some practical ways of achieving our impossible dreams? There are a number of books and articles that have been written on the subject. I will outline just 3 ways to do this. The first and most important, ladies and gentlemen, is to articulate our dreams. At the start of my speech, I asked for your willingness to trust in this process and to take this journey with me. Even if very little comes of it, let us try at least in good faith to be part of this adventure. Nobody will be put on the spot. There will be no hands raised or for me to call on anyone. It is a game simply between you and yourself. Nobody will be looking over anyone else's shoulder. If there are empty chairs, please spread around. What I'd like for you to do is to pick up that yellow origami paper that is at your chairs. I picked the color yellow because that's the yellow of the bumblebee. And we will divide this sheet into 3 sections. And there'll be 3 questions which I will ask you to take a minute on each question. If you will take the paper out, draw 2 lines to divide the paper into 3 sections, 2 lines in the middle, in the 1/3 each, and let me ask you 3 questions. As I said earlier, the more open we can be, the more we can truly address the issue of the impossible dream. Let us put our doubts or cynicism aside and see what happens. The first question relates to our personal life, to your loved ones, to our family. Studies have shown that when people look back at their lives, the regrets that they have, they relate in large part to their loved ones. The communications that they wish they had had, the love that they wish they had shown, the time that they wish they had spent. And so my first question is, with regard to your personal life, your loved ones, and your family, in the time that you have left, what are 1 or 2 things that you would very much like to do? Take a minute to complete that in the first upper third of your piece of paper. With regard to your personal life, your loved ones, or your family, in the time that you have left, what are 1 or 2 things that you would very much like to do? In the middle section, think of your workplace, where each of you is a leader in many respects. where you have the opportunity to leave a legacy, however small it may be. And write down one or two things that you would truly like to do that people can reflect on and remember you for when your work purpose is completed. I repeat, write down one or two things in your workplace that you would truly like to do that people will reflect on and remember you for when your work purpose is complete. In the lowest section of the page, and this is the last exercise and perhaps the most difficult, write down one or two life missions or goals that you would like to achieve if you had no obstacles in the way and it was all possible. I would urge you to think of areas that are outside of the work and outside of your personal life, areas that you have always toyed with, considered, but wondered if you could ever do it. Write these ideas down, however far-fetched they may be, even if you have only a partial belief in them being possible. Let us take a minute or two, on the last one. Now, like in origami, fold this piece of paper, 2 folds, and then 2 folds again, until it is small enough to tuck away in your wallet or your pocket for the time being. The first practical way, ladies and gentlemen, to achieve your dream is to articulate the dream. You've heard the song, you got to have a dream, for you don't have a dream, how will you make the dream come true? In a sense, it is just the same. In Tokyo, we have a small support group in our family where my wife and I get together with a few close friends. And sometime in February of this year, my wife articulated her dream of writing a book on architectural walks in Tokyo. This was in February. She now has a contract with a publisher for next summer, and every month in the Tokyo American Club Journal, there's an article on a different section of Tokyo, an article that she has written that will be aggregated into this book. The first step is to articulate the dream. I said there were 3 steps. The second is to make space and time for your dreams. The second practical way is to make space and time for your dreams. And one of the most important ways to do that is to eliminate the inessentials. This means a number of things that we are doing at present that we think are important, but may not be truly important in the context of the dreams that you've just written. All of us tend to let everyday matters crowd out our dreams. And we cannot realign our life consistent with the highest dreams, whether it's in our personal life or in our work or in our mission, if our time and energies are consumed by too much outside of it. This requires a reflection of all that occupies our times at present and seeing how our time could be refocused on what is truly important. Why did we say that articulating your dream is the first step and then the second? Because unless we know what is essential, we cannot eliminate what is inessential. One of the best examples I can give of eliminating the inessential is a beautiful story from an Indian epic story called the Mahabharata, where Lord Arjuna and his fellow students are being given a class in archery. The teacher invites all the students to come and get their bow and arrow ready to shoot, and he asks the first student, "What do you see?" And the student said, "I see the clouds, I see the forest, I see the trees, and I see the clay pigeon." The teacher says, "Thank you, please sit down." Then he calls in the second student, tells him to get his bow and arrow ready, and says, "What do you see?" And he says, "I see the tree and I see the clay pigeon." The teacher says, "Thank you," and sit down. Then he calls Arjuna. Arjuna gets his bow and arrow ready, and he says, "What do you see?" And he says, "I see the clay pigeon." The teacher says, "Look again. What do you see?" And he says, "Now I see only the eye of the pigeon." The teacher says, "Now you're ready. You shoot." I give this example, ladies and gentlemen, because that's the kind of focus we need to have if we are to make space and time for our dreams and to eliminate the inessential. In the Bible, there's a very interesting story in the book of Luke that talks about a woman named Martha who was welcoming Jesus into her home. Martha was a thoughtful and a considerate person who wanted to make Jesus comfortable after his journey. Soon after he came, she went to the kitchen to get him a drink, and then soon after to make a snack for him, and soon after to make lunch. The time came and the time went, and the opportunity to sit and talk, for which they had invited him into their home, was lost. I say this not that we need to be selfish in doing things for our loved ones that we need to do. I say it mainly because sometimes we need to keep our focus on our dreams if we are equally to meet our obligations to our loved ones. The two have to be in balance. The third step, first, as I said, is articulating. Second is to make space and time. And the third is to believe in our dreams. The Adoni family believed that they could find a cure for their son. They ended up finding a cure for many people's children. Beloved believed that he could hike the Appalachian Trail in spite of the odds. Sony trusted in its vision to be a pioneer company even if they had to sell crude heating pads and soybean paste. Same with the other examples I gave. Same is true for your dreams, ladies and gentlemen. If there are hindrances, don't dwell on them. Hindrances exist if you believe that they exist. Remember, things are not as they are generally, but things are as we believe that they are. Ultimately, pursuing our dreams comes to taking a leap of faith or choosing not to have faith. Imagine yourself standing at the brink between a reality and a dream, and you're asking yourself this question: should I? Can I? Dare I? The famous writer and poet Goethe is known to have said that concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there is one elementary truth. The moment one commits oneself, then providence acts too. Whatever you think you can do or believe you can do, begin it, because that action has power and magic and grace to it. And this is a direct quote from Goethe. Basically, in committing ourselves in this way, we write our own script. We write our own story. I remember of a comment that Churchill made one time when he said that history would judge him kindly. When asked why, he said, "Because I intend to write it." How will our life script be judged, ladies and gentlemen, if we choose not to write it? The common question that we all face is, what if I fail? What if it'll never happen? Oprah Winfrey claims that she has never failed, but that she has learned a lot of lessons. That is the best way to view failure. When we do it that way, there's no such thing as failure, only lessons learned and false starts and dead ends and wrong turns. Because failure is inherent in any risk that we undertake. Let us look at perhaps one of the biggest dreams of the 20th century. I mean, there were many dreams: the wars against fascism and tyranny, the restoration of civil rights for all in America, women having the right to vote at the start of the century, and of course, the landing of the man on the moon. Those of you who are young enough to remember that landing may know that it was one of perhaps the most joyous occasions, not only for America, but the world. And I remember watching it from India. But at the time when the landing took place, NASA did not know that the astronauts would actually ever come back, because no spacecraft had ever landed on the moon and taken off again. Now, just in case the astronauts could not return, they had prepared a speech for the American president to give to the American people to inform them of this event. And they had planned a burial at sea, following which the president would speak to the American people. I accessed that speech from the National Archives, and I'll read to you a few sentences from that speech, because I found that to be very touching. And the reason why I will say that is because when you listen to this, I want you to reflect on the fact that the dream that was undertaken was more important, and that success and failure was not relevant to the dream. He would have said, and this is just a few sentences I will read: "My fellow Americans, fate has ordained that the men who went to the moon to explore in peace will stay on the moon to rest in peace. These brave men, Neil Armstrong and Edwin Aldrin, know that there is no hope for their recovery, but they also know that there is hope for mankind for their sacrifice. These two men are laying down their lives in mankind's most noble goal, the search for truth and understanding. In their exploration, they stirred the people of the world to feel as one. In their sacrifice, they bind more tightly the brotherhood of man. Others will follow and surely find their way home. Man's search will not be denied. But these men were the first, and they will remain the foremost in our hearts." This excerpt, ladies and gentlemen, tells us in part that the courage to pursue our dream is our obligation as members of the human race, as we live the short span of life that we have been allotted. And any advanced assurance of success is neither necessary nor relevant to the dream. This is not a bargain we need to seek in advance of the journey. The engineers at NASA were following the two guideposts that we discussed earlier from Norman Cousins. Man's ingenuity lies in doing that which has never been done before, and we don't know enough to be pessimistic. We mentioned earlier that pursuing our dreams is our duty and our obligation. All of you in this room represent a very privileged elite. You have important positions in society. You are financially well rewarded. You have good health, hopefully. If you will not pursue this dream, who will? Is it the 2 billion people who live on under $2 a day who will pursue the impossible dream? That can be, because our reality already exceeds their dreams. Rabindranath Tagore, a poet, put the concept of duty in a very beautiful light when he said that I went to sleep and dreamt that life was joy. Then I woke up and realized that life was duty. So I went on to my task of doing my duty, and lo and behold, I realized that duty was joy. I would urge you, ladies and gentlemen, to view it as part of your duty to pursue your impossible dream. Notice I did not say achieve your impossible dream, I said to pursue your impossible dream. That's the challenge we all face as practical dreamers in life. The practical dreamers among us walk with one foot in the world of imagination, hopes, and dreams, and the other in the world of reality with its limitations like time, money, space, the needs of other people. That is an ultimate challenge. When you do that successfully, it'll be like you have some kind of wings, no different than the bumblebee we talked about earlier. As you return to your homes after the meetings today, and this is my last slide, and reflect on what you have done during these meetings, the people that you have met, the classes you have taken, the business tips you may have picked up, I would like for you occasionally to pull out that origami paper from your wallet, from your purse. Take time to add more depth to what you wrote, articulate it more clearly. Make sure that you make space and time for those dreams and eliminate certain unessentials in your life, and continue to believe in them. You will falter, like we all do. And if we do, let me leave these words of an American poet who talks about faltering and about hope when he says, in his few lines, when you walk to the edge of light and take a step into the darkness of the unknown, you believe that one of two things will happen. You will have solid ground to step on, or you will learn to fly. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you and wish you the best on your impossible dreams. Thank you.
Well, Krishen is a hard act to follow. Did a wonderful job, Krishen. Particularly after 9/11, your words of inspiration were very helpful to me. And considering the turnout in the standing room only back there, everyone was up very late last night, and the fact that they all came in to see you speak is just a tribute to you.